Good morning. Thank you, Diane, for the beautiful prelude. So my name is Mary Blanton, and I'm your service coordinator today. Welcome to the North Chapel on this chilly last Sunday in January. It's wonderful to see all of you here. Today is the day of our annual meeting. I hope that all of you will plan to stay. There will be a masks optional coffee hour that's already been set up downstairs between the service and the annual meeting, which will begin at 11:30. Chloe has graciously agreed to stay to take care of the kids, if you can stay. And since not everyone can attend our meeting, we're using the OWL to allow people that can't come to Zoom in from home. And this is new technology for us, and so we ask for your patience. We've tried it all out and it's worked, but we hope there won't be any glitches, but we ask for your patience if there is. So I'd like to welcome Gwen Groff, who will be giving the reflection today. Gwen is the minister at the Bethany Mennonite Church in Bridgewater. Gwen, you are one of my favorite guest reflectors, and I'm sure that there are many of you who also agree. The title of Gwen's reflection is Maps. As a map lover, I would like to share these words by Tyon Coleman. We use maps to find our way in the world, to locate ourselves in relation to others, to measure distance and record change. Maps are inherently contextual, which can make them seem old-fashioned in a culture that values immediacy, one that operates through image and spectacle. The image is a mask, a face, a front, an arrow. The map is its opposite, not an index of the world, but a way of relating to it. I'm looking forward to hearing your reflection, Gwen. Our minister, Reverend Dr. Leon Dunkley, is also here with us today. He will be resuming office hours this week and will be in the church office on Tuesdays from 3 to 5 and Wednesdays from 12 to 2. Please stop by or call or text him to let you know that you are coming. His phone number is on the front of your order of service. And I'd also like to welcome Laura Foley, who will be reading a poem during our service today. If you're visiting, we'd love to have you sign the guest book that's at the back of the sanctuary on the table. And please, not just your name, but your address as well, so that we can contact you if needed. We also now have large print copies of our order of service and of the hymns that we will be singing. We also have hearing devices available. So if either of those things are needed by anybody, please raise your hand, and I'm sure Francis will bring them to you. I think Polly has an announcement. I know Polly has an announcement.
Isn't this a beautiful altar? As a member of the Welcoming and Engagement Committee, I have the month of February to ask for people to decorate the altar, to welcome, and to contact trace. So if anybody is willing to do those 3 things for the month of February, please contact either Joanne or myself.
Thanks, Polly. I'm sorry you had to stand on tiptoes.
Also, it would be very appropriate for us to show some of the items as we have today that are going to be in our auction.
I have a postscript to what Mary said about new members or guests, visitors. Please give us your full mailing address because we like to send you a note.
Thanks, Francis. As always, as Polly and Francis have just said, there are many things happening at the North Chapel. For instance, our annual spring auction will go live on March 6th. We have a few of our donations on the altar this morning to hopefully inspire you to think of what you might donate to the auction. We would love to have more participants, and particularly any services you might be willing to offer. Could you pet or house sit for a weekend? Help weed somebody's garden? Bake something that you've delivered to somebody? Or offer to provide a picnic for someone? Please think creatively and call or email either Diane or me, or Sue. For more information about the auction and many other things happening at the North Chapel, please look at your order of service, In Touch, or on our website, www.northchapelbt.org. Chloe is here for SE, and I have exciting news about Chloe that we would normally share at Joys and Concerns, but since she will be gone then, we'd like to share it now. She has just accepted a position of the Executive Director of the Chandler Center for the Arts. We are really gonna miss her, but she is uniquely qualified for that job, so we wish you well and hope you'll come back and visit. And last, please turn off anything that buzzes, jingles, or beeps. For as long as I can remember, I've always loved maps. Road maps, topographical maps, maps and books of fiction, nonfiction, even treasure maps. I remember studying the maps in The Hobbit, tracing Bilbo's route from Rivendell to the Great Hall of Thrain, where Smaug lived. I love topo maps too, and in my house, I have 6 local quadrants tagged to my wall that I consult often. And when I plan a backpacking adventure, one of the first things I do is pull out the maps of the area to check on the elevation gains and losses so I can determine how many miles are possible each day, where there is a water source, and where it's flat enough to pitch my tent at night. In my teenage years, when my older sisters were no longer living at home, my parents and I, on 2 consecutive summers, drove out to California. There were no throughways in the 1950s. In preparing for our trip, we consulted with AAA. A representative would lay out a map on the counter and with a transparent marker, trace our route over many maps. They also traced our route on a triptych, a book they created of many larger scale strip maps that were easy to follow. How many of you remember triptychs? A lost thing, I think. I loved turning each page as we progressed along our journey. They also marked construction zones and detours, and we always groaned when we turned the page and saw them. I think cell phone apps have now replaced both triptychs and maps, but I still like to travel with a map in case I have a problem with my phone, as I have had on occasion. As teenagers, I am guessing that some of you, like me, may have constructed a personal roadmap in your head of what you thought your life as an adult would look like. My unimaginative teenage roadmap went something like this: go to college, find a job, get married, have kids, buy a house, travel to interesting places, and live happily ever after with the person I married. As I got older, the straight line on my map, like the ones on the triptych, ran into construction zones and detours. However, rather than groaning about the construction zones and detours, I now realize that they were some of the most important times in my life. And on our road trips, the detours often took us to beautiful out-of-the-way places that we would never have seen if the straight line on our map hadn't been broken. I'd like to read a poem by Joyce Rupp entitled "Maps No Longer Work." I keep pulling it out, the old map in my inner path. I squint closely at it, trying to see some hidden road that I might have missed, but there's nothing new now, except some well-traveled paths. They have seen my footsteps often, held my laughter and caught my tears. I keep going over the old map, but now the roads lead nowhere, a meaningless wilderness where life is dull and futile. Toss away the old map, she says. You must be kidding, I reply. She looks at me with Sarah's eyes and repeats, "Toss it away. It's of no use where you're going." "I have to have a map," I cry, "even if it takes me nowhere. I can't be without direction." "But you are without direction," she says, "so why not be free?" So there I am, tossing away the old map, sadly, fearfully, putting it behind me. "Whatever will I do?" wails my security. "Trust me," says my midlife soul. No map, no specific directions, no this way ahead or take a left turn. How will I know where to go? How will I find my way? No map. But then my midlife soul whispers, there was a time before maps when pilgrims traveled by the stars. It's time for the pilgrim in me to travel in the dark, to learn to read the stars that shine in my soul. I will walk deeper into the dark of the night. I will wait for the stars, trust their guidance, and let their light be enough for me.
Hi, I wanted to read you this poem today, which is about exploring especially through the eyes of a child, and it's based on a weekend I spent with my grandchildren. The Wonder. We sat on the carpeted hotel floor as we rolled the ball to each other, our legs stretched out like goalposts. We put Milo in the luggage trolley as Eleanor and Evelyn pushed him. Then I pushed all three, choo-choo, along the hallways. We took turns pressing elevator buttons, and once someone rang emergency by mistake. In the lobby, we drank free hot cocoa in front of the cozy fire, acted out Frozen, everyone singing, "Let it go, let it go." Even Milo. We found a back stairway, let a ball roll down the steps, just for the wonder of it. A rainbow-colored orb, pink, yellow, blue, green, with little rubber spikes coming out that made it fun to grip and spin. Milo climbed the stairs on all fours, and Eleanor climbed too, with my help, as Evelyn galloped up and down. Explorers, we roamed the corridors, even the top floor, closed to guests. For breakfast, we were up early, of course, and it was snowing. The children, in pajamas and snow boots, ducked with me round the corner to the friendly toast. Evelyn, usually a picky eater, ate all her chocolate chip pancakes with bacon, while the others munched cereal, and I ordered Eggs Benedict for a treat. And now home, I can't stop making it. Delicious smoked salmon, touch of cream on toast, eggs poached, just right.
I would like to once again welcome Gwen to the podium. She unfortunately has to step out after the service because their church is also having their annual meeting today. So obviously it's annual meeting day for lots of places. So welcome.
A brief reflection on maps by Miroslav Holub. Albert Gent-Georgi, who knew a thing or two about maps, by which life moves somewhere or other, used to tell this story from the war, through which history moves somewhere or other. From a small Hungarian unit in the Alps, a young lieutenant sent out a scouting party into the icy wastes. At once, it began to snow. It snowed for 2 days, and the party did not return. The lieutenant was in distress. He had sent his men to their deaths. On the 3rd day, however, the scouting party was back. Where had they been? How did they manage to find their way? Yes, the men explained, we certainly thought we were lost and awaited our end, when suddenly one of our lot found a map in his pocket. We felt reassured. We made a bivouac, waited for the snow to stop, and then, with the map, found the right direction, and here we are. The lieutenant asked to see that remarkable map in order to study it. It wasn't a map of the Alps, but the Pyrenees. Goodbye. When Laura asked about the tone of my reflection, I said, I hope it is playful. I find that poem playful, tedious at first, but playful. I like the surprise of people getting lost in a storm and finding their way out by following a map that turns out to be a map of entirely the wrong mountain range. I like the sudden weirdness of the last line, goodbye. What is that about? Is it meant to be funny, to make us laugh? When I read this poem to one person, he said he imagined the poet reading the last line and then running off the stage so no one could ask him any questions. I even like the playfulness of those tedious opening lines. It's a poem about getting lost, and it starts out getting us lost with a name of someone we probably don't know and talking about wars and history when we're meant to be briefly reflecting on maps. I've seen one translation of this poem that actually lops off that opening stanza about Gent-Georgi and also skips the closing enigmatic word, goodbye. I'm not going to make a laborious poetry analysis here, but I do want to tell you, in case you want just a bit more information, that Albert Gent-Georgi was a Hungarian biochemist who won the Nobel Prize in medicine for isolating vitamin C. He did know a thing or two about war because he was involved in several. He was in the First World War as a medic. He was active in the Hungarian resistance in the Second World War. And when he moved to the United States, he resisted the Vietnam War by protesting as a tax resistor and letter writer. Maybe all of that is helpful if we're not going to stay lost in the cryptic lines about Albert Gent-Georgi. But all of that is background. What is the story of this poem? It's about Albert Gent-Georgi's story that reflects on maps. A lieutenant sent his scouting party out into icy wastes, and it starts to snow, and his men don't return. He feels responsible. But they did not die. One of them discovers he has a map in his pocket. They had given up hope, but the map reassures them that they're not lost after all. They make a plan. They wait till it stops snowing. They consult the map, and on the 3rd day, find their way back to the lieutenant. The map is what gives them hope, orients them, gets them unstuck, It's not the right map. It's just a map that they believe is the right map. It keeps them from giving up and waiting for death. What actually saves them? Hope, having a plan, making a bivouac, a shelter, waiting for the snow to stop, and then getting moving toward home. So I started thinking about maps. Mary said, I love maps. There are map people and there are not map people. I'm actually not sure which I am. I love maps as objects, almost as art. I love the ancient Here Be Dragons maps with distorted, disproportionate land masses and monsters in the dangerous, unexplored seas. I love the really old maps oriented with the south on top, or the east on top, oriented toward the rising sun. Maps made before European domination required north to be on top. I love what maps look like, the grids of cities and the contour lines of hills. I love finding the marks that represent places I know. At our extended Christmas gathering this year in Lancaster, we had our Yankee swap, a gift exchange that's always a mixture of gag gifts and some real gems that someone found for under $10. By our Yankee swap rules, you can either open a wrapped gift or steal one that you like that someone has already opened. But a gift can only be stolen 3 times. The hot item this year was this mug that has a delightful map of Lancaster City. You can probably see it best on there. It's pressed into the bottom of the mug. I stole it from my son after he had stolen it, because if I didn't, someone else would have. I thought it was just beautiful and so clever to hide a map on the bottom. I insisted that I had the right to take it because I was born in Lancaster City. And he said, so was I. Actually, so was almost everyone else at our Christmas celebration. But I got to keep it because mine was the third steal. Everyone else was left with socks and hand cream and Russell Stover chocolates. I love this beautiful map. But do I like following maps? On a road trip, I would rather be the driver than the map reader. On a walk, I would rather look at the landscape and have conversations with fellow walkers than consult a map. I care more about enjoying the journey than reaching the destination. My husband Robert and I did a retreat on a Scottish island this past summer that included a couple of long walks each day. We were given an information packet with maps for each walk, and I never looked at the map before the walk. I only took the map with me in case I got lost. I preferred to be present with the people walking with me and noticing the landscape and the wildlife. I wanted to see what was real, not the flat representation of it on a map. I do appreciate the problem-solving nature of maps. Recently, I met with a former congregant who now lives in New Hampshire. I met with her to have a sort of complicated conversation, and both of us felt that it would be good to be outside and moving while we talked. She suggested a location halfway between us, Woodstock's East End Park. I had been there several times in the summer, walked the labyrinth, which incidentally is a sort of map and landscape all in one, a physical journey within a symbol of a journey. They're gorgeous. That one's really gorgeous. I had once before walked the loop trail along the Ottaquechee, starting at the East End Park, but that time I had been listening and not paying attention to the route. This time it was early December, no snow yet. It was a warm and sunny afternoon when we started out. I didn't wear a coat. I had worn my sunglasses, not my reading glasses. Why bring reading glasses on a walk? You can tell where this is going, can't you? This is the tedious introduction before the story. We walked and talked a couple of hours. My companion is in her early 80s, healthy, fit, a keen observer. But after a couple hours, the sky clouded over, and I wished I had worn a hat and gloves as she had. I wished we had brought water bottles. And I wasn't sure where we were on the loop of the trail. I had got disoriented on the walk out because it seemed we had made a big U-turn from the parking area, and then the river made a big U-turn, and then we had crossed a footbridge or two across marshy areas, and then we'd come to a T, and I wasn't sure that we weren't on our second slow circuit around the loop of that trail. It seemed we may have missed the stalk of the trail that led back to our cars. We weren't tired. The trail was flat. We weren't really lost. We could see the roofs of Billings Farm and the porch of Worthy Kitchen. We knew which way was north and east. We just didn't know how to get back to the spur of the trail that would lead us to the parking area. It seemed we could be out for another couple of hours. There was a post with a laminated map, but neither of us had our glasses, so we couldn't read it. And so we just kept walking. There were benches along the river with lines of poetry carved in the wood. One that we had read just then had a different line of poetry from the ones that we had read earlier. Did that mean that we were on a new part of the trail? But we hadn't read all of the bench quotes the first time around. Where were the pointy saplings that had been gnawed by beavers? That was a unique landmark. If we would see those chewed tree trunks again, we would know we were on our second time around the loop. But where was the path exiting the loop? The stem of that wobbly lollipop. I was pretty sure we had missed it. She was pretty sure we hadn't. We met a man with his plump corgi walking toward us. My friend said, "Excuse me, can you tell me, if we keep walking in this direction, where will we end up?" Without missing a beat, he said, "Vail, Colorado." "But first," he said, "you will come to a no trespassing sign with a silhouette of a man with an AK-47. We have such interesting neighbors." We told this lovely man our predicament and described to him where we had parked. And he said, "If you turn around here and now and keep following the river, it will lead you right to it." The right map is helpful if you can read it. A person who knows the place can be even more helpful. We admired the corgi. My friend asked if he had stolen it from the Queen. The man asked if we had seen the pencil-sharp work of the beavers, their beautiful abandoned building project. He told us that he had helped to build this park, and we thanked him for his beautiful work and for his timely help. And we said goodbye. It occurred to me that this is how I live. I immerse myself in the walk, the conversation, the art, the step-by-step discoveries of the journey. I enjoy the excitement of occasionally getting lost, and I depend on the kindness of strangers for help. But I've begun to wonder how my life would be different if I actually followed maps, literally and metaphorically. If I chose a destination, made a plan of how to get there, and looked intentionally at a map of the terrain that I planned to move through. What kind of people do that? And could I become one? Could I become a map person? I was recently talking with a friend who said that he was under a lot of stress and having trouble sleeping. He said he lives his life oriented toward the future, making plans, making maps, making decisions, and imagining 429 ways that his plan could go wrong, and then what to do in response. I realized I don't do that, not at all. I live my life in the now and oriented toward the past. It's partly my ministerial role, focusing on ancient stories from thousands of years ago, but it's also who I am by temperament. I try to make meaning of the past, of childhood events, of the nuances of a recent conversation, of the arc of a life. I live in the past and the present, and I don't make a whole lot of plans for the future. I welcome what is and respond to what comes up and try to understand the past. I ruminate, but I sleep well at night. Now I have begun to challenge that usual tendency a bit. To see it is maybe a luxury. I realize that if I want something to happen, I may have to help it happen. I watch the news and I think things have to change. I wonder what can be done. What can I do? My tendency to focus on the past and present has its upside. I'm fully present, I listen, I'm awake. I am a deep sea diver of the psyche, delving in the inner world of the human soul and resurfacing to report on what I have found. That is a quote about my Enneagram type. But this focus on the present and on the past also has its downside. I can be terribly passive, refusing to take responsibility for my future, for our shared future, giving up agency and freedom in order to avoid risk. I realize as I age, I could drift more into passivity, and I want to resist that. I want to be a wise crone, not a stuck crank. And so I've begun working with a coach to try to be more intentional about making a map. I am in unfamiliar territory with goals and vision statements and future plans. But for me, this mapping of a future is an attempt to not get stuck. The plan doesn't have to be the right plan. It can be a map of the Pyrenees when I'm in the Alps. I just need a plan. We need help moving into the territory that doesn't come naturally to us. A coach, a therapist, a counselor, a spiritual director, a friend. It's a new year. I recently learned that that friend who never looks back, who plans and decides the future and troubleshoots himself into insomnia, he is looking back. He is reading 20 years of his late mother's journals, looking back. A map of a new land, an attempt at balance. What maps are giving you hope? What strange path is leading you home? Goodbye.